Today we're going to be installing some wallpaper, and when you hear wallpaper you might think old, dated grandmother's house. But there's some pretty cool wallpapers out there that can add a level of interest and warmth to a room that paint can't achieve. For this room, we are going to be using a paper-backed grass cloth that requires an adhesive applied to the back, but there are wallpapers that are pre-pasted and require just water activation. One thing we're not going to cover on this video, but is on the website, is how to determine how much wallpaper you need. There are quite a few factors that are involved, such as does it have a pattern or not, how many windows and doors you have to go around. So it's better left online. We'll show you the map. We have you covered. So definitely check us out online, but now I think it's time to get started. So it's time to talk about the products you need for installing your wallpaper. It's really important that you read the instructions that come with the wallpaper because oftentimes there might be a specific adhesive or primer to use. What we're going to show you are the products needed to install a grass cloth type of wallpaper that's paper backed and that it does not have an adhesive already on the back. For this installation, we're going to be using the latex primer followed by wall size. Some people might just use wall size, but after being in the interior design industry and working with high-end residential wallpaper installers, I've been told that doing both is important, so that's what we're going to be doing. To apply both of these, it's just like painting, so we're going to be using our tape, paint brushes, roller cover, roller handle, paint tray, and paint tray liner. You'll want to protect your floors for all this, so we have some plastic drop cloths on the ground. And you want a nice big work surface to work on, which you can see here. We have just a real cheap piece of drywall turned on its back, placed on 2 plastic sawhorses. Super cheap and easy. Here we have a level, which is really important because if you live in an old house, your walls are probably not square, and even new construction, sometimes things aren't perfect. So this will give you a nice straight vertical line for your wallpaper seams. For our adhesive, we're using the Roman Pro 880, which was advised to use for our type of wallpaper. Once again, read your instructions because it'll tell you what type to use. And you want to have plenty of blades around for cutting your wallpaper. You don't want to cut with a dull blade because it can give you jagged edges. And once it's time to put the wallpaper on the walls, you'll want to have brushes around. You don't want to use metal because it can scrape your wallpaper and damage it, and you really don't want it to have that. So here we have, a stiff bristle brush, and also we have a plastic smoother here, which we'll use in the corners to get the wallpaper nice and tight. And you are going to be applying the wallpaper with some excess top and bottom, so you're going to want to trim it. So we like to use a putty knife, which will act as a guide for our blade. And at the seams, you can use a wallpaper seamer, which will, push it down nice and tightly. And most importantly, you need wallpaper. So here we have our paper-backed grass cloth. Before wallpapering, you should assess your room. There's a few things to take into consideration. The first thing is the room temperature. Adhesives require a minimum room temperature, which for us is 50 degrees. You also want to be aware of the room humidity because the more humid a room is, the longer it can take for the adhesive to dry. Also, now is a good time to do wall prep, such as sanding down bumps and filling in holes. And if you live in an old house, you might have some paint buildup at your trim edges. You will have to cut the wallpaper at these edges, so by removing it, it just makes it a little bit easier and looks a lot nicer. First, you'll prime your walls using the latex primer. The primer gives the wall a nice texture for the wall size to adhere to. When it comes time to install your wallpaper, you might be inclined to start along your edge. However, most homes, the walls aren't straight. So if you keep installing the wallpaper as you move down, it's going to be angled and it's just not going to look good. So what we do is we start in the middle. And it is also an interior design thing to start in the middle because most interior designers like symmetry. Because you will kind of notice those wall seams. So to begin, we find our middle point in between our wall and our door. And from here we measure out 18 inches left and right because our wallpaper is 36 inches. You might be wondering, why not just start from the ceiling? Well, the ceiling's also probably aren't straight. So what we need to do is create an independent vertical line that we know is perfectly straight. So we use a level. And we just make a line all the way top and bottom, and this will act as a guide for our wallpaper installation. We've determined how many lengths of wallpaper we need, and we know each one needs to be 93 inches long, which does have an overage for top and bottom. So to start our cuts, we lay the wallpaper on its back on a nice big table, which we just used a 4x8 piece of drywall on 2 plastic sawhorses. It's cheap and easy because we didn't own a table that big. So first, put on its back and line the edges up with your table. It acts as a nice guide to get it straight. We're using our level to keep the wallpaper down and start unrolling it to the other end. We have our 93-inch cut lines all set, and we shifted the wallpaper down to give us some more room to cut. And we also moved the wallpaper so it's flush with the edge of the drywall, which will help us when using the T-square, which is this item right here. So we put the T-square flush against the sides at our cut line, and we'll use a blade to cut along the edge. And you want to switch your blade out after every few cuts because you don't want to end up with jagged wallpaper edges. So to then connect, because obviously you can see that we have to cut the other end, you can either shift your wallpaper to the other side and continue using the T-square, or you can use a flat ruler, which is what we're going to do to keep it nice and easy. So here we just connect our lines and cut with our blade. We're ready to apply the adhesive to the back of the wallpaper. First, you roll the wallpaper out face down on your long table, and you put the adhesive in a paint tray. We're going to be using a paint roller and a paintbrush for application. So get the adhesive all over your paint roller. You notice it's a little thick, but it's okay. And then start rolling it onto the paper. You'll want to get close to your edges with your roller handle, but then you can come through with your paintbrush to get extra close. And we run the edge of our wallpaper over our work surface so you don't accidentally get the adhesive on the work surface, which you might end up getting on your next piece of wallpaper. We've applied the adhesive evenly to the back of the wallpaper, and now it's time to book it. Booking wallpaper is where you fold it onto itself, which allows the glue a chance to activate. If you were to apply the wallpaper directly to the wall, sometimes wallpaper can expand, and if it expands on the wall, wrinkling and bubbling can occur. So what we're going to do is fold it onto itself, nice and slowly. And if you don't position it right the first time, it's okay. You'll be able to pull it off. And work your way down. And push lightly. You don't want to push at the ends because you can create a crease in your wallpaper, which will show up on the wall. And you'll want to read the instructions for your wallpaper because it might tell you how long it needs to be booked. This we do for 5 minutes, which was according to our instructions. Alright, so let it sit and we'll come back in about 5 minutes and hang it on the wall. We've unbooked the top of our wallpaper, and now it's time to align it with our red vertical guideline. Here, as you can see where my thumbs are going to be the excess that we line up with the top of our trim. And what's good is by using the wall size, we're able to shift the wallpaper around and slide it like this. And give it, just a little pressure, but not too much, because you will have to reposition it. And slowly work your way down the wall on your red line. We've unbooked the bottom of our wallpaper, and now we're going to start smoothing it with our plastic smoother. So we like to work top, bottom, and then inside out, and our goal is to push out all the air bubbles. Even if you don't see them on camera, they are there. You also use the plastic smoother to start pushing in the wallpaper into your corners. Don't worry about getting the adhesive on your trim because the adhesive, at least we're using, is water-based, so it will come off with simple water and a rag. So to cut your edges nice and tightly, we like to use a 4-inch putty knife that acts as a guide for our blade. Once again, use a fresh blade for each panel of wallpaper. So start by cutting. Don't remove your blade as you're moving along the edge. Once you've cut your edges, you can use your finger to push it down gently and then follow up with a damp sponge to remove any adhesive that got on your trim, followed by a microfiber cloth to wipe it down. So we finished cutting the top of our wallpaper and now it's time to cut the bottom. So we're going to do one last pass at the bottom with our plastic smoother and push the wallpaper into the edges. Our house is old, so the edges aren't perfect. Now it's time to come through with a 4-inch cutting knife and to cut the edge. As you can see, we've pushed hard enough for the wallpaper to come off, but not too hard to damage the trim.